What's going on, everyone? Thank you again for joining me with another stream. For those that are new here, for those that are coming back, my name is Jermaine L. Murray, also known as the Job Father, career coach, recruiter. I have a mission where I'm trying to help 500 Black people get jobs in tech. As of today, we're at 420 of our goal, and we're hoping that we can again hit that number by the end of next year by any means necessary. And part of that initiative are activities like this, where I try to share as much knowledge as possible with people in our community and people that are maybe a little adjacent to it as well. It's not a good thing to hog knowledge or to be a gatekeeper. So I'm hosting these series in hopes that you can maximize your chances for getting that new job off the strength of your resume. There are, I would say there are about 100 to 200 different ways that you can get a new job in this market. A lot of them revolve around networking. A lot of them revolve around, building up your skills. But the one consistent thing across all spectrums is your resume. And if you don't have a strong resume, the chances of being the next big thing on the block, or even just with regards to who you're going up against in interviews, you won't succeed. So I'm hoping to give some evaluations, give some perspective on what I've seen as a recruiter and a career coach and resume writer that makes for a successful resume. So I'd like to thank everybody for also submitting your resumes. This is an open forum as well. So, if you're watching from YouTube, if you're watching from LinkedIn, if you're watching from Twitter, you can make a comment on this thread. And again, we're open forum if it's about what you're seeing or if it's about, something in particular, like a career question. Feel free to ask it in the chat. I'll do my best to get to all of them. But without further ado, we do have a lot of resumes, and I do want to get to them. So we'll jump right in them. So for those of you that are new, here's how I review resumes. One, I'm looking at your format. Is it easy to read? Does it is your information organized correctly? Are you consistent with things like your grammar? Then I'm looking at your keywords and your use of achievements. Are you displaying your achievements correctly? Are they making you seem important? Does it make it seem like you're building on having like this narrative around an impact? And if so, what kind of impact? And then lastly, this one's a bit more abstract, but like the overall story that you're telling me about your resume, on your resume. So story is very important because not only is the ability to tell a good story great for organizing data, but it's also what a lot of good people, executives, coaches, leaders, what they use in order to attract and get talent to buy into something, whether that's the belief in them or the belief in what it is that they can do and what they're promising. So if you are unable to tell a good story, and this is on all factors, your resume, your LinkedIn, your interviews, even advocating for yourself on the job when it comes to like going after specific projects or where it means going after specific initiatives, right? Not being able to tell a story of like why you are that value is going to hurt you. And so it's good practice to be able to like tell things in the framework of a story, starting with your resume. So let me just share my screen quickly. And we will get right into it. So for those wondering, if you would like to submit your resume to be reviewed, I'll put the email down in the chat, but you can go to you can email your resume at support@jupiterhr.ca, and I'll be more than happy to review your resume. The only stipulations I have are you scrub your information from your resume. So this means your last names, your address, phone number, email, because we don't want to again put anyone in the hot seat or just share out people's information. And then if you work for like a really significant organizer or employer, just making sure that you don't put anything that may violate any NDAs. But send that over at support@jupiterhr.ca. Happy to review your resume. Okay, so right off the bat, a couple of things that I like about this resume is that the format is pretty straightforward. It doesn't have a lot of fluff. Anyone that has been watching, these live streams know that I'm not the biggest fan when it comes to professional summaries. I think that when it comes to hiring managers or recruiters, in this day and age, people are skimming resumes, right? People are, trying to save time. And this is where like strategically using your space, your resume comes into play. You want to be able to create a strong first impression within the first half page of your first page. So this area here is the most valuable real estate of your resume, right? I'll highlight it. Right, that first half. And the reason that first half is important is because that is what's going to form the foundation of anybody that is reading your resume at a high pace. But this means that your resume also has to have the same hit when it's at a slower pace or when someone's really trying to take it in. So you want to be careful of like what you're putting in this first half of your resume here. This is why I'm so against professional summaries. I think that there are specific waste of time, right? Anything that you are trying to have on your resume in terms of that professional summary, right? You're better off just writing a cover letter. So I like this setup in the sense that we have the key highlights. These are your key skills, keywords that may pop up on a relevant job posting. Now, I think it'd be better to jump right in to the professional experience because some of the stuff here, the skills overview, for example, it repeats the same as like the key highlights, right? So it kind of gives the format in itself a bit of repetition. I would X that out. When it comes to project accomplishments, I think it'd be better to list this as major accomplishments because that's what you're really trying to convey here. I think I think in practice, this is a good idea. I think my only issue with here is that these are more on personal projects. These are more on, their own initiatives, which is fine, which is valid. But like this person has quite a few like really good opportunities here, and like this is the subjective branding part of resumes. I always tell people it's not corny to name drop on a resume because that's the exact place where you want to be doing these kind of things. So I do think that this is a good one that's here, but I think that these two could be replaced with something that's from like Click Health specifically, where this person is working. So that would be my only qualm. And if anything, I probably would have moved this entire section just above the key highlights. Now, the reason why, if you're going to put like major career accomplishments or like an overview at the top of your top of your resume, or you're trying to figure out where to put on your resume, you want to put it at the top. And the reason why is if you do it from a really good standpoint, like if you are able to pull it off in the language in itself, as somebody that's skimming a resume, reading off these couple of major accomplishments, I think these in itself might be a bit too long, right? It should be like something quick like that, right? Reading these major accomplishments quickly gives me an idea of like the career success that this person has had, makes it a little bit more intentional. The then going into the actual like key highlights themselves, again, the specific key skills I may be looking for as a recruiter, it blends really well because then you're giving me again high level successes and impacts, which is exactly what I want. Then you're listing out the key skills that I'm looking for as I'm looking for like this next hire. And then we go into the professional experience where if used effectively, I'm seeing repeats of these key highlights or maybe even other aspects or other consistent achievements that go blend well with the major accomplishments. So I also think that, again, if you're gonna have a technical element to your resume, like a skills table for like actual technology that you use, I also think that you should blend it into the top as well. Um, or remove the initiative piece, something like that, right? Because now, and honestly, if your technologies aren't as deep as this or aren't like very like technical, you can blend them in with the key highlights in themselves. But look, when I said the first half of the resume is now important, just by moving some things around, in that first half you're gonna get, again, you're gonna get right into actually the meat of the experience in itself. But we have the major accomplishments because it sets the tone for like what kind of skills or what kind of impact they can expect from this person as a project manager. And we go into skills, or we should, I would just put these as technical tooling. Then we go into like our technical tooling, right? Center that, give that a bit more space. Oh. Anyway, go into our technical tooling, and as somebody that's a project manager or is working in a space in tech that, you know, isn't really like quote unquote very technical, it's even more important to show off the technologies that you use in your job in order to be successful. So this is why I'm like, again, give me the major view of your career, then you give me the technologies that you specifically use. Kind of help me as a recruiter just remember that, like, again, if I'm looking for specific technologies or exposures or keywords, this is an excellent like way to blend that in. Same thing with the key highlights, and then we go in and we start looking at the actual experience. Now, everyone that's been watching this for the last little bit, you understand that I'm not the biggest fan of percentages without certain context around them to show off, like, again, what it is, the actual oops, excuse me, what it is the actual percentage is talking about. Like for this one for here, this is a bit vague. Like I understand you enhance the billability and efficient processes, but like, is there like a specific aspect of the process that was slower that needed to be addressed? That's what I feel like is missing right now. The other thing I would say is that some of these bullet points, it's not that I'm anti points without any quantifiers. It's just that I feel like the quantifiers, if they don't have an actual achievement, then they should be interesting, maybe highlighting like specific technologies from up here even that you're really familiar with. This bullet point is really good. I like the mix of an absolute number in the terms of the dollar value, and then pairing that with a percentage gives it the right context, right? Um, the only thing I'm not liking about this resume so far is that there's just an over reliance on percentages. Um, and I may have been mistaken about the Jazz portfolio thing because that is connected with ClickHealth. So my bad in that case. It kind of read a little bit more like a personal project. So I think the only thing I do in that case would be to like add that it's a ClickHealth or like your employer's project for your employer. That was your initiative. That standing from the ground up would be really good. So I am noticing that as well. A lot of fluff here. So no shade, right? I think it's totally fine if you do it. If you're going to use something like ChatGPT for your resumes, one thing that you need to start getting familiar with is identifying when it's, putting in a bit more fluff than it needs to be. A lot of times when ChatGPT is writing, like, especially if you put in like the specific job description, it can write things that just appear very fluffy and doesn't really have like a direct impact. Now, I'm not saying that this person wrote it using ChatGPT, but like this like when sentences have this much ambiguity, it makes hiring managers feel like it's a chat GPT project or product. And like some people are being very reasonable. They're like, yo, I don't really care if someone uses chat GPT or AI for their resume. Cover letters, they're a bit more like, yo, write the cover letter yourself. But the beef is when people that are not able to back up what's on the resume is when things start getting tricky and in trouble. And like why some people are adamant that they don't want to be, if they can feel or tell that AI has been used in the application process, they don't want to deal with that person because they almost take it like a personal insult. I don't know why, but that's just one of those, just the way some of the things are. But here specifically, it kind of just reads like that because again, it is a bit fluff in that sense, and there are also patterns in the writing, right? Like this involved, this facilitated, right? That is a classic chat GPT thing. And you can see multiple sentences are kind of written like that. So that's also another giveaway. But the other thing I would say too, because of all we did up here, right? There is like a bit of a cutoff here. So so if I was this person, I would then also just find a bit more examples of like successes or achievements and just write them out until they hit the bottom of that page. Especially because like this is an organization that they've spent quite a bit of time at. It makes sense for it to dominate the first page, have the most details. Like if you've been in an organization or a role since 2022, we're almost into 2025. That experience is what's going to again allow you to leverage that to get your next job. Like they will always look at that experience, the most recent experience, especially if it's been over a year or 2 years, as like one of the main deciding factors of whether or not to interview you, right? And they look at your most recent job because that gives them an idea of like where your specific skill set is. Sometimes what recruiters will even do is they'll use something like Crunchbase and they'll search up your company and try to see again an idea of how big the scale of the projects that you're working on, right? Because what's a senior project manager at one organization is not, it might be just like a project manager without the senior at another, all based on scale. So this to me is what a more ideal resume front page looks like. Again, you can see we got the experience that's listed here. I think some of these experiences, not counting the duplicates that I did, could be a lot better if we change up the workflow or just again what you're trying to communicate, i.e., your story. And going through some of these again are just a bit bland, right? I know it can be a bit hard at times, but like project managers should have some sort of quantifiers that aren't just specifically percentages, right? I like the 4 and 5 here, but it'd be really good if we got a little bit more like time-based achievements here, like telling me, reduce a deployment from 2 weeks to 1 week would be really good. I also do think one thing you should always be careful too is that I do like how specific it is around some specific programs and calls out specific projects they worked on. Do that in your resume. In fact, you should even go as far as bolding it as well. But do that in your resume. Talk about specific projects. Don't be too generic. And then going through some of this older stuff, right, to fit the certs on, might not really need all this older stuff. Sometimes it's okay to just wipe out some experience or cut some experience, especially if it's over 5 years, if you want to fit everything, right? And now the resume has gone from 3 pages to 2. So overall, I think that the formatting is pretty decent on this resume. I think the keywords and the achievements are also okay, a bit fluffy, which makes me think Chat GPT, and that's not an indictment. I'm just being real. And there's like an over reliant on a reliance on percentages, which again is something that you want to be careful of. Um, when it comes to the actual story, that was the other thing that I felt like was a bit inconsistent. So, as a project manager, again, there are a lot of different angles you can take, but I'm always someone that encourages people to develop some sort of niche. And your niche should also reflect like what your value proposition is to the workplace, how you go about making your colleagues' lives easier. And that could be everything from, again, mentioning how you make processes faster, streamline better, implementing technology, how you make sure deployments happen on time or like ahead of schedule. Those kind of themes throughout your resume says a certain level of consistency. Now that allows employers to really want to tap in there. So that clearly articulates the value that you present, and that's kind of what you want to focus whenever it comes to your actual resume. Now with my added changes here, um, so sorry, I should mention. So the final grade I'm willing to give this resume is a 6 out of 10. As I said, the format is clean, crisp. I like it, especially when it comes to the actual easeability of how to read it. It was a bit long, so we cut it off, as you can see, but it still remains some really good integrity. Um, I do think that the actual bullet points, outside of a few, are a bit too generic in terms of what like they actually achieved. But I do like that this person also dropped specific project names as well. The story is a bit inconsistent in my opinion, so I'm going to be giving this about a 6.5. With this new format that I have, that would probably bump it up to like maybe like a 7.5. But the biggest thing here is the contents. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing for half a second as I load up the next resume. And like I said, folks, um, feel free to highlight questions in the chat. Happy to have the discussion and bring you on. So this person's asking, should we bold our quantifiers throughout the resume? Yes, with restraint. I would say still be a bit conservative. Like you did, like if you find that your resume has achievements and it's just like bolding all on like one side, for example, be a bit more conservative with that, especially if you want to emphasize like a really impressive point. But like I think bolding specific like impressive quantifiers and bolding whenever you name drop somebody, like if you're saying like, I work with high level clients like Drake, for instance, I would bold the name Drake. If you are trying to draw attention to a specific number that you're like, yo, this is the best example of what I'm able to do it, right? But you have to understand like what the story is you're trying to tell and use that as a way of discernment to not overwhelm your resume with a bunch of bolded letters, right? And that is more, again, just to guide the eyes of the person that's reading it, especially in that early first, part of the whole, 30 seconds of reading, 37, no, some people say it's 7 seconds, 7 to 20 seconds of reading your resume, which is crazy. But when you have 100 applicants and you have a whole bunch of other work that you got to do, sometimes it's a shame, but you got to do what you got to do. Okay. Like I said, folks, feel free to ask questions in the chat. I will get to them when they pop up. Thanks again, Trigger Baby. For our next resume, all right, so this person really took what I said about making it redacted very seriously. I appreciate that. Um, I would say that this probably would have been a bit easier to go through if you just replace the information with like random numbers or names, but like I can't, I gotta respect this and make me feel a little bit important reading a redacted document. But with that out the way, thank you so much for submitting this, Stacy. So right off the bat, I'm not a fan of the cover letter. I'm not a fan of the cover letter lead into the professional summary. It takes up too much. It's a bit much. And I think you'd have just better off just having a straight up cover letter. I do like the quantifiers that you have here for your overall major achievements. I think some of these are like really good. I like that you're also selective with how you use percentages. I would get rid of the ones without the quantifiers, right? These might be better worked into the actual experience itself. So um these four bullets right here, I would get gone. Let me just zoom in for y'all. Sorry. So yeah, everything from annually to develop pilot programs, I get rid of. And then my key highlighters would my key career quantifiers would be the maintain 80 plus, 960,000, and then two percentages, right? Then going into the role in itself. So I think this is again a little bit hard. So um, I think that this is actually done really well in the sense of I like how straight to the point the quantifiers are. Um, and I do think that this is also pretty good. I think one of my biggest gripes, or something that I would start encouraging a lot of people to do, is to just write a sentence about like what it is that the company does as well. And granted, like I know that this is a redacted one. For all I know, this could be a company that I know extremely well. But it's just a bit hard to really read and kind of decipher, especially if I don't know exactly what it is that they do. I like here that Stacy that they consolidated their promotions into the one job here. Um, I do think one way that I've been like kind of cheating to get around this for my clients is that I'd title it with the most recent job title, and then I'd put that they got promoted in their actual success stories right there. So it's like, everyone is kind of getting like, everyone knows what's up, everything's on the up and up, it just flows a little bit better. But I'm okay with the consolidation here. um I do think that this is a really good role overview. I think it might be just a little long, from redesigning it could kind of get cut. But like overall, I like how they set up the first sentence here. And I say I would cut some of the things here because like if you're gonna go on to like a next page, you got to use the full page, in my honest opinion. So some of the things here could be consolidated. I can't see I can't see. Oh, you know what? I just realized that this wasn't a intro cover letter. This was the actual experience. My bad, Stacy. Um, so I do think that. So I take it back because I thought this was like a letter opener because I couldn't really see it. I take it back for this experience. This experience is actually really good. I still wouldn't eliminate these four bullet points and try to be a bit more specific because I feel like you even mention them somewhat or allude to them here in the actual body. So I'd either, again, what's mindful of spacing, I would take a sentence out and maybe one of the bullet points. But this is really good. Um, Back to this one. I like the bullet points here specifically as well because, again, one thing that Stacy's not doing is over relying on percentages. So like a lot of these bullet points come across as pretty strong. You know what I'm saying? Um, love the scale here with the 200 professionals across 80 plus schools and organizations. Love the 35,000 scholars. Love the dollar amount here negotiated and scholarship requirements, increased for eligibility 300 plus citywide. Love the context here. Uh Love this bullet point here, even though that this is a bit redacted. But this is very. I think this may actually be Stacy's best written experience across the entire resume. Very strong bullet points. I love the mix of the different quantifiers as well. And it paints a really good picture of Stacy um, from a director standpoint. I can't see the resume. Let me try to zoom in a little bit more. So this is the resume. Apologies, I didn't realize it was tight like that. But like Stacy again does a really good job of having a mix of different numbers and quantifiers. Again, not overly relying on percentages, and when they do have percentages, there's good context around them, right? Um, so you can't, when you're writing again achievements for your resume, just always be careful not to over rely, or I think that just saying a percentage is going to get everything like clear. Finding different metrics is really good, and I think this here is Stacy's best like written experience. Followed by this one because of these 4 bullet points that don't have quantifiers, and then this one. Sorry, this one in the middle, just because it feels a bit light. Um, Now, with regards to this stuff, the conference leadership stuff, I feel like this would just be better left off the resume and put on a LinkedIn or a portfolio. Um, by doing a couple of cuts, you can fit your education on that first page and get your resume down to like a 1-page resume. But overall, I'd give this resume a 7.5 out of 10. Excellent. So we got a couple more people in the chat. Thank you. Welcome. Thank you for coming through. Please don't be shy. Feel free to ask any career questions or anything you see with regarding the resumes in the chat. I'm more than happy to highlight them and talk with you live. Just going to load up the next resume. So I did this experiment where I turned my screen sideways because I do that when I'm at home around my real computer. So I'm also trying. I also felt like it'd be good for like these resume sections. So let me know if you feel like oh dude, one of the first things that I said. Sorry. I just realized this person didn't clear their resume of their name. So let's try that again. But let me know how you feel about the vertical screen, and if you find it easier or harder than like the last screens to kind of see what's on the resume. So this person, Marcus, when we look at their resume, this is a pretty straightforward and standard resume template that I see quite often, especially with tech people. It's funny that's coming from somebody that is working in finance, but still pretty decent one. I think one of the things that's missing here is that there's not enough context around like what the role is. And like I always say, like if you can put in a company overview, something that allows people to understand like what it is that your company does, and then a role overview which highlights like what it is you're responsible for. And then your experiences, your bullet points are supposed to be your actual like achievements right then and there. And that's how you do proper structure. So I find, especially because like, hey, if you've been at a role since 2021, right? You've been there for like almost 4 years at this point. I think I'm gonna zoom in again. I think that the role that you've been at for the last 3-4 years should also get a lot more attention than the other roles, right? These are all from almost 10 years ago. So I would definitely reduce some of these bullet points, especially the ones that aren't very good in terms of being detailed and quantified, right? Easy way to again get more space to add more things to it. When it comes to the theme, I don't think that there's a really good theme here. I think there's a theme around customer satisfaction that's here for sure. I don't know, but like it kind of gets lost when we start moving up to specific like trading. So I don't know if if that theme is going to be consistent enough to allow you to like really tell a strong story here. So that's one thing that I noticed, but otherwise the theme is pretty consistent from that perspective. In terms of the actual bullet points, there's some really good ones here. I do like the absolute numbers more than anything else in the percentages, but like I said, if we look at the experience, this is all stuff that's older than 5 years old. So most of the attention, most of the details, most of the bullet points should be going around building up this experience to like be something that may be a bit more compelling. But the format's clean. I would also add the skills that we have here at the top. But the format's clean. I can't hate the format. And the bullet points are pretty strong. I just wish that there was a bit more detail. So, like, ironically, what I'm basically saying is that we just need a little bit more fluff so that we can like be properly guided and understand like what it is that you are trying to communicate to us in terms of like what you're able to accomplish in the workplace. So I'm gonna give this resume about a 6.5. Right, filling it out, fleshing it out a bit more could easily make it an 8, but this one's a 6.5. All right, let me load up the next one. As I said, folks, if you have any questions, don't be shy. Put them in the chat, and we will get to them. But I appreciate y'all for even just being here and working through some of these resumes with me. All right, let's go with the next one. Let me stop sharing. There we go. All right. Like that this person started off with their key skills. I like that we have a bit of, wish we were able to see a closer view. Okay, give me 1 second. Something is telling me, based on what you guys are saying, that this might not be the ideal situation. Okay. Okay, give me 1 second. If you're having trouble, I'm gonna try something to make it a bit better for us. Okay. Is that better? Is this easier for people to see? Okay, excellent. All right. Apologies for that. So, I like that this person has been able to like lead with their, all right, glad to hear, Jerome. All right, so I like that this person has been able to lead with their with their key skills here. I One thing I will say about key skills is that you should try to avoid like very vague or generic key skills. Like I like this person's a project manager, obviously. So project management is definitely going to be okay. We will just for heads up, I will never use the vertical screen again for any one of these. I thought it was cool. So my bad. Had y'all straining. Almost 400 people here with me straining to see this resume. I'm my bad. I apologize. We will never use that again. But back to the resume in itself. So when you're listing out your key skills, I do want to say that it will always work in your favor to try and make them more aligned or more technical as possible. So you want to avoid some of the generic ones or the superficial ones like client relations, right? Especially because stakeholder management in essence is very similar to client relations. Leadership, we got to have a bit more context of what the leadership is. I like resource planning and conflict resolution. So then so that's a good opening. I'm okay with the highlight of skills qualifications. I feel like if you're going to do like your skill qualifications outside of the years of experience, I do think that you should have a quantifier here, right? This in itself kind of does what this is supposed to. So I'd get rid of that. Like that one. This is a bit too vague, and not needed. Should be something separate in like its own technical tooling, like I kind of showed before. I do like the company overview, right? gives you a good idea of what it is that they do, the markets that they do them in. I do think that if you're going to do a company overview, also have a role overview specifically talking about what it is that you do in your workplace. What is it that you do in the role? You could have easily done this by just deleting this line here and just making another space for it. When it comes to the actual experience in itself, again, this person is doing it from 2022. I want y'all to keep that in mind. If I ever point out that somebody's been at a role for more than 2 years, it's because I'm going to be interested to see how much space they allocated to their current job versus their older jobs and how long their resumes are. So just keep that in mind. So the individual bullet points here, um, I think this is a really strong one, right? Manage 3 projects concurrently. So we have our scale or scope here. Deployment of 8 CAD AVL products, deployment of 11 yard management systems, deliver PDI hybrid and electric vehicles for the third largest public transit authority in North America. Beautiful, beautiful. Even if you don't name drop them specifically, beautiful all around, right? It's kind of funny because these are like metrics of the actual products themselves, but like the 3 projects works brilliantly. And then the individual products as well with the quantifiers works brilliantly. And then this is the cherry on the top that immediately gives you an idea of the scope that we're actually talking about. So I do like that quite a bit. Like this one as well. Like this one as kind of as well. I think 22% cost savings is a bit vague, but like I'm okay with it because again, we have it backed up with extra quantifiers, right? Um, this one is a bit light. These three I could do without. So then PNR, same thing, really good in this first one. These other ones, nah. Like I said, if you're not going to put a quantifier in your experience, right? The next best things for you to do is to highlight like very job industry specific technologies or tools. Even better, if you can put in like trending technologies, emerging technologies. Like right now I'm telling everybody you should be looking for ways to add, like figure out how, like what AI tools make the most sense for your workplace or for the job that you do, and start incorporating that, because that is an example of emergent technology that you can talk about and how you've implemented it in your workflow, right? But these other ones, like if you're not doing it with interesting technology, if you're not doing it with highlighting specific clients that you may have, then like find some other way, or just scrap this experience entirely, because this is just like checklist stuff, right? Um, Again, this person was a project coordinator beforehand. I do like this line here. So what I probably would have done would have probably said something along the lines of promoted, like you just delete that. Enable editing. Would have done something just like, promoted from, what was it? Project coordinator after 1 year, or after delivering milestone project, after delivering project epic company milestone project that generated $400 million. Promoted from project coordinator to assistant PM. It's 8 p.m. So something like that, right? So then we can immediately just junk that, and junk that, right? This one's a bit light, but for spacing purposes, we'll just keep it in there. But all of a sudden, again, this is a bit more stronger in my opinion. I do like that this person has decided to be very conservative when it came to again their older experience. I'm okay with this gap year thing right here. I don't think I personally don't feel like it's okay that we, as a society, have allowed employers to be extra in our business, in terms of like trying to like justify like what we're doing with our own spare time. But the reality is that a question that they're always going to want to ask when it comes to like gap years is, how did you make sure your skills didn't degrade in that time? Now, if the gap years happened almost 10 years ago, I don't really think it's worth mentioning, because I imagine that the NBA would also pop up and kind of just like allow people to confirm that. But I understand. I think it's okay putting this in here. Um, and then again, this is actually a really good example of experience being written, because they're falling on absolute numbers and they're also falling on dollars, which is great. Um, like again, you see, you remember what I said earlier? If you're not going to have a quantifier, then either put in specific tooling or name drop clients. This is a good example of that, right? So it still gives you an idea, because it's relying on like the visibility of some of these companies. And like I think one of these you can already guess is huge, right? If you know anything about basic geography in Canada, you know how huge this one is, especially Stanley Cooper, right? Really good. And I do think that the education at the bottom is brilliant, does fill up enough space so we don't have to worry about being too particular about that blank space. So, um, this is a really good resume, in my opinion. A couple aspects of it are a bit dry in terms of like making sure you're making good use of your quantifiers, especially for these overall skills and qualifications. But I love the fact of how this was written. And I love that that kind of writing and approach to the experience is consistent throughout. I think the only thing that would actually make this resume a bit stronger would be if they had like a portfolio, right, to kind of dive a bit more. But this is a pretty good resume. That I think this is the strongest resume we've seen tonight. I'd give this an 8 out of 10. Wonderful. All right, gonna load up the next one. As I said, we're a community. Let me know if you have any questions. Don't be shy. Happy to have those conversations, answer any career questions that you may have. I'm just gonna drink some water as well. Always hydrate, folks. Always hydrate. Okay. Next resume up. Oops. Okay. Apologies for the delay. Okay. Thank you, Ayana, for submitting your resume. I appreciate it. Shout outs to you. Um, when it comes to the resume itself, as you know, not the biggest fan of professional summaries. Would have jumped straight into the key skills here, which I think are actually really good. The only vague one I would say are account management and project management, but these are all really strong ones as well. Helps with the idea of this little line here. And to be real, I actually love this over here. I love the marketing manager. I love the deep seated experience bit. I love the marketing communications, Arrow, partner marketing, organizational leadership. I think that's a great tagline. I would just get rid of this aspect so we jump right into the key skills. When it comes to career highlights of success, I do like this approach. Um, I like the fact that they called out which company that's for, so that when you go further in, you can properly articulate why this is worthwhile, or for example, you can articulate like again like the consistency of like the actual employer. Um, Love that we are highlighting what the actual project is. Um, Rate of 5%. I love that when they're using comparison, when they're using percentages, the context that they're using to compare the percentages in is a comparison context, right? Telling you what the industry average is, and then also telling you how they eclipse the industry average, which is great. Um, Love the time stamp here. And I love how you flex the 100 and first, I love how you flex the Super Bowl, right? That's a flex. You should bold this still. Um, and I love how you just casually flex the 123.7 million viewers. Like, yeah, yeah, fam, talk your shit. um, Loved how, like, I really love how this person, whenever they're writing out their experience, percentages specifically, they always add the right context here. And this is what I've been saying about, like, you got to have, when you're talking in percentages, if you're going to use percentages, you got to have the right context. And one of the best contexts for percentages has to be comparisons, whether it's month to date, year over year, you know what I'm saying, quarter to date, all that stuff, right? All time, like, you want to specify this so um we can properly understand what it is that you're doing. Somebody did point out that success is not spelled correctly. It happens. It happens. Good call out. I hope if you can see this, um, I hope you can see this. You can just fix this. That's one small mistake on a so far a really good resume. Um, Love this comparison as well, back to back. All right. So, I think there could be a little bit more spacing here specifically. But I do like this role overview. I think a company overview would have been fine, but I also like, I think you could have easily just gotten rid of this bullet point here and kind of just add a company overview. But like, I'm not mad at this bullet point, this sentence here. Um 50-50 on this. I know I see what you're trying to do. But it kind of just feels a little bit messy. But I think in terms of like what you're trying to do, of like making sure that you're capturing the eye of the person reading it, I think it's a good idea. I think because of the lack of spacing, and I see like we're almost out of page, but I think because of the lack of spacing around it, it's not doing what it needs to do. Now, if you move this maybe at the top, I think that would be great. If you could put something like um proudest moment in this little corner right here and put that at the top, I think that would flow a lot better. Um when it comes to the actual experience in itself, I like this. I like this bullet point a lot. I'm not a fan of these ones, right? I'm a fan of this one, but and this one as well, but I'm not a fan of these. So like, latest advancements, call it out. Like, what is that? That sounds very generic. What is that? I don't know what that is, right? Call it out what those specific advancements are. Um, I think this could have definitely used a number, right? If telling me how many accounts total or how many consumers total. Um, this one's this one I think is all right. I'm kind of iffy on it because again, not like a big quantifier here. But I do think that because this person specifically used the technologies, it's good by itself. Like this, um, like this one a lot. I should probably go at the top too. But that's a flex. Shout outs to you. That's amazing. This is right here. I really enjoyed reading. Um, from the quantifiers to like the story that they're telling around the marketing. My only gripe so far is just like the formatting's a bit tight, right? And this is again why I'm like, kill this, get rid of this, right? It's making you squeeze up your great experience, right? Let it have a little room to breathe. Like this, this put on a cover letter, or just don't even mention it, because like the rest of your resume kind of tells what this is, and this is in the most important place. Um, Going to the next one. So like your biggest issue right now is spacing, right? And the reason why I'm calling out spacing is because I want everyone to know that a lot of recruiters, like more or less, if you are going to get advanced to the interview stage with the recruiter, that recruiter has looked at your resume before making that decision. I want to say for me, it was anywhere from 2 to 4, maybe 5 times. That first look through that I do is me skimming. Excuse me. Oh my God, I don't know what happened there. Is me skimming specifically to make resumes for my shortlist. And then my short, like the resumes that they had like a good strong impression on me, I put them to my shortlist. And my shortlist, I would go over in more detail, reading up on the experience, even sometimes going more detail and visiting their portfolios. Sometimes when I'm going through my shortlist, I have my hiring manager with me and we're going through them together. But like it's important for you to successfully like make that strong first impression so that you do make it to the short list, right? And the reason why I keep saying spacing is because if it's hard for somebody to skim through something because there's not enough white space, right? Chances are the more the amount that they skim or skip in order to skim efficiently is going to be more because it's harder to read. This is why you'll also hear me say like, yo, you should bold the certain experiences that you really want to stand out. You should use different fonts, etc. It's just to capture the eye when somebody is skimming through a resume. And once like that's where the visibility comes in, and that's why certain formats are important for a resume. It's that first look. That second look is supposed to be the depth of the content for your experience. That is supposed to be like, oh shit, I need to meet this person, right? So for this one, I think that the achievements blew me out the water. I loved how everything was set up. It's just a little too squish, which I don't think in it by itself would damn this from not like moving forward, right? But depending on someone's workload and like how stressed out it is, I can see them kind of like there's a not a big chance, but there's a chance that somebody might skip it off of that format because it might be too hard to read in the beginning. But I really enjoyed this one. And before y'all tell me, yo, can't recruiters just do their job and just read the damn resume? I agree with you. I agree with you. But I think a lot of people underestimate um how like busy a recruiter's day is, right? And like I'm not trying to. I think everyone deserves a callback, and I think everyone deserves to have the resume read. If I'm gonna go through the effort of making the damn resume and submitting it, the least you could do is read it and get back to me. That's where I sit on it. But as somebody that's worked there, and then when you have these external pressures, like you're supposed to be responsible for presenting metrics to your leader, you're supposed to be responsible for advocacy for talent. You have a expectation, maybe not necessarily a directive, to also participate or help manage employee relations or employee engagement related stuff. Like there's a lot of stuff that they're asked to do on top of taking 30 minutes to sometimes even an hour out of their day to do multiple interviews. So this is why things have been conditioned the way that they are, right? I wish it wasn't so. That's the reality that we got. So we got to work with it. And again, this is where the whole spacing thing comes into play. Now, with this here, you can kind of tell like this person is really trying to like stay within the 2 pages, which I respect. But like now, like the experience is really squished, right? And it's kind of hard to kind of tell the difference between the points that you want to stand out and like what your role overview is, right? So I would say some of these, I don't even think you really need too heavy, right? I think that you could easily take away a couple of bullet points here. Anything older than 5 years, I'm gonna be honest with you. All it does is just confirm tenure with me, right? Um, I think like even having like when I think of like this client here, Microsoft, right? Microsoft Windows Phone. Some of you might not even be old enough to know how whack the Microsoft Window Phone was. It was a good piece of technology, but the way Microsoft rolled it out was completely whack. And I think the person ahead of this project was actually Steve Ballmer. So this is me just saying, nobody that worked on this project works there anymore, right? That's how far back it is, and that's why I'm saying it's not too relevant. It just confirms certain tenure with me, right? So, especially because there's no quantifiers here, I would definitely eliminate this portion here. And I also want to say that somebody, I think it was Kadisha, brought up a really good point here. I think this person should add a month. I agree. Specifically for two reasons. One, there have been a lot of recruiters. I don't agree with this. I think this is the stupidest shit, right? But there are a lot of recruiters that will immediately jump to, what are you hiding? If you don't put the month next to the year of your resume. I think it's asinine. I think it's dumb, right? Some recruiters that I love and respect, some of you do this and it's dumb. It's the dumbest thing outside of, asking somebody like, why are they unemployed anymore? It's dumb. Anyway, I would say put the month in, right? Even if you don't remember, put something rough in, because you have recruiters that will like have or like judge you for not having it. And then the other thing is, if you come across a work day, the ATS work day that everybody hates, if you put the dates in, both the months for like your experience and also your education, in fact, with your education, you should have the full like range of like when you started and when you finished. It'll be easier for Workday to like scan and catalog your information, and so you don't have to put it in all over again. So that's a couple of reasons why you want to have the months. Again, like I said, I think it's stupid for like some of the reasons why. But like some of these older experiences, like this is the Raptors were still good during this time frame. This maybe like a little longer to 2019 was our whole entire We the North era. We are like 4 or 5 years away from the We the North era. So this is older experience. So you don't have to put so much detail here. I do like this. I do think that you should keep this here, if for no other reason than once you start going towards like St. Louis, like clearly the theme that you have here is a marketing manager that specializes in using social and other forms of marketing as like a companion to like large scale events, right? With this whole Super Bowl stuff, and then the stuff that we have up here with regards to bigger markets. So I would keep this as is, reduce that, space everything out a little bit more, and then kind of take it from there. But I think the biggest thing here is just eliminating this, and it's going to give you so much more room to work with. So what would I grade Ayanna's resume? I think the only weakness with Ayanna's resume that I found, in my opinion, would be the formatting, from the spelling mistake to how squished up the experience looks. And let me just say this too, like this little bar that she has here, if you're going to do this, you have to do it for all the jobs, right? All the jobs, or it has to be something that's extremely impressive. But I think the formatting kind of takes away from how impressive the actual resume in itself. I would always say that content is king. So you'll never hear me say like, like your template was so bad, even though everything else on was great. I think that's stupid. So I do think that that's a strong resume. Just needs a few tweaks. So I think this is going to be the first resume I give. I give this an 8.2. It would be an 8.5 if we fix some of this spacing issues. It'd be maybe even a 9. But you know what? I'm gonna give it an 8, not an 8.2. I'm gonna walk back. I'm gonna give it an 8. decent resume, great writing, poor spacing takes away and makes distracting. I also say this, Diana, as a marketer, right? You should have a portfolio just highlighting some of the stuff that you've done. It sounds like some of the stuff that you've done has a really big digital footprint. So I would find those videos on YouTube, and put together a little portfolio for myself. But like this is the strongest resume that we've seen tonight, and I do appreciate you for sending this my way. Okay, I'm gonna take a little water break, and we have a couple of questions that I'd like to answer before we load up our next resume. Uh, Let me just make sure I get that loaded first. Okay. How do you know if you're being too reliant on numbers, or he meant percentages? So, how to know if you're too reliant on percentages? I would say I would say if you have 5 bullet points, and this is just me, but like this is how I would kind of go about it. Cause like you can just look aesthetically and see like every other thing I have on here is a percentage of some sort, right? But like for example, I'm saying like if you have 5 bullet points in a job, I don't think, and like all 5 of them are have quantifiable achievements. I don't think that I don't think that more than 2 of them should be percentages, right? And even then, the percentages need to have proper context around them, kind of like what we saw with Diana's resume, how she always was comparing or giving the sense of scope that the percentages we're dealing with, whether it was client or market. But I would say like no more than 2 every 5 bullets. You know what I'm saying? Um, because again, there are other like what you want to explain percentages, you can explore in so many different ways. Like it's almost like how we used to do math in like early school, percentages, decimal points, rankings, fractions, like you know what I'm saying? Like there are a lot of different ways to communicate that information, especially if you can tie it to dollar value amounts, right? You can tie it to time. So like I don't want people to be over reliant on percentages. Try to be conservative with them and try to make sure that you're always giving the right context as to like why they're impressive. I'm always going to quote my dad here when he said when we talk about percentages. My dad had this really corny ass dad joke where he used to go, 50% of the doctors that graduate, 50% of them are on the bottom half of their class. And he just did that to show me that percentages don't mean shit without the right context. Or, you know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, what of course there's going to be a bottom half. There's always going to be a bottom half. 50% is 50%. But just keep that in mind when it comes to your resumes, when it comes to like even how you're answering interview questions. Why not mention the professional summary? Somebody kind of answered this in the chat. Taryn, I appreciate you. But what Taryn wrote here, this is why I don't mess with professional summaries. Takes up the most valuable real estate on your resume. And that could be devoted to listing skills or just stuff that's going to be a lot more impactful than something that could just easily be put on a cover letter. And wouldn't putting our beginning and ending dates for education be opening ourselves up to age discrimination? This is a toughie. Because age discrimination is unfortunately a real thing. I don't know what's with the human race and always trying to find like a new ism to create to oppress people. But yeah, I would say that's a really good point. So to me, I've worked with like a lot of older people more recently in their careers, especially with like just how the market has kind of been. Um, I always encourage older people to leverage and lean into the fact that they're older and they're experienced, and to try and position himself as being a wealth of understanding and knowledge, and kind of like the perfect quartermaster on a pirate ship. Um, for those that are unaware, the quartermaster, or even in some cases more like the first mate, actually, the first mate. The first mate on a pirate ship was usually the person that went in between the crew and the captain, right? A lot of times, captains on pirate ships would be very aloof, and their aloofness could be taken as like slights, and it would be up to a good first mate to either make the decision on the behalf of like the best of the crew to either translate that aloofness in a way that's inspirational to the troops or to the rest of the pirate crew, um, or figure out if like the best interest of everyone is to seize power and do a mutiny, right? So that's your little pirate shenanigan horoscope for now. But long story short, um, you want to lean into being that quote unquote person that understands the burden of leadership but doesn't want it, but can help where they can. And leaning into your experience is a perfect way to do that, I feel. So, if you really feel a way about it, I would say have a resume with all your dates specifically for like ATS's like Workday or Telio, that's going to ask you to put that information back in if it's not in there, and then have one that maybe a bit more vague. But I'm gonna be real with you, people like between like LinkedIn and just doing the math on like your experience, people are going to be able to determine um that you're quote unquote a more seasoned professional, and the bias is going to come in either way, right? So I'm always like, you know, I don't think that you should try to run from it. You should try to embrace it, and you'll have an easier time finding opportunities because you'll filter out what's not a good fit for you. But appreciate you coming through. Okay, let us present our next resume. Okay. So, candidate, appreciate you. Let's see. Yeah, not a fan of the summary. Think the skills are pretty good. There's a couple of superficial ones, but not that big of a deal. Operations manager. I think this is a strong bullet point. Bit long but strong. Same with this one. This one, if you're, I always find it funny. If you're gonna talk about a KPI, you need to highlight an example of the KPI. 15%. This is all right with the percentage, but I think if you're ever gonna talk about Six Sigma or optimization, you're always better off detailing it as a time basis. I think maintain the 100 compliance rate's a good one. I could say a kind of this is a decent one, and this is a good use of technology. So I like this experience. Again, I think I would have enjoyed I think this here, like you could just delete the bullet point and have this as the overview of the role, but I'm not complaining because it was in the bullet point. So I think so far the only thing I don't like about this one so far is just the professional summary. Um so somebody that was asking like, yo, how do I know if I'm doing too many percentages? Like if you just take a look here, you see how like saying like just a snapshot of this particular experience, right? Um you can see like there's five here and there are three percentages. Now this is I'm not gonna go too crazy about it, but like as I read them, I'm hoping that like these percentages have some really good context because like I just feel like they waste of space in some cases. Spearheaded e-commerce operation, 110 members, 6 direct reports, while driving a 98% order fulfillment rate. Okay, it can go on. It can go on. It can go on. Um, if you're again no quantifier, if you're going to use, if you're going to have if you're going to have a bullet point without a quantifier, especially if you're talking about specific systems or use of systems, you got to put in the name of the actual system or technology itself. I don't like not like me not knowing what this is works against you, right? Like even here, like I like the levers of the Tableau, right? I think because so if you are going to talk about, you know what I'm saying? Like if you're gonna talk about KPI, like I know what I said about the bullet point without the quantifiers. I'm gonna make an exception. If the technology that you're listing in your quantifier list or quantify that or bullet point that is not quantified is something that references KPIs or data visualization, you have to add a bit more. You have to add a quantifier there. Like you can't be talking about the use of the stuff that gives you the quantifiable numbers and metrics and not talk about like what those quantifiable metrics are. I'm just saying, right? It leaves a lot to be desired, and I think it'd be better off in in your interest to adhere to that. And if you're going to talk about KPIs or data visualization, brethren, like talk about it, talk the talk. Um, but anyway, moving on. Implemented Six Sigma Kaizen that identify ways, thereby right, enhancing operational productivity by 30%. I get what you're going for, but what is it really? This doesn't really like you don't tell me what waste is. What's an example of waste? For all I know, you just telling people how to throw the garbage out. Like you're telling people not to leave garbage overnight on their desk so we don't get roaches. Like that like I know that's not what you meant, but that's kind of how you meant. That's kind of how you coming across, right? So I need you to identify the waste, right? Operational productivity, 30%, it doesn't really mean a lot to me, right? I need to know what that 30% contributed to. How much money did they save? How much money did they make? How many more projects were they able to take? What does operational productivity actually mean? Give me an example. Don't just give me a percentage because I don't know if this is a percentage of zero. I don't know if you went from really, really bad to just bad. You know what I'm saying? Like we need a couple a bit more. Always assume that the person that's reading your resume when it comes to percentages or just anything on your resume, always assume, unless you got a referral, that they're operating from a place of complete and utter ultimate skepticism, right? They are super skeptic about the information that you have presented them. They are looking for ways to prove that you are not who you say you are, right? And being vague is a real good way for them to say you are not who you say you are, or you are not who I'm looking for. So try to avoid that, right? Um, Cost by 20%. This is the same thing. So, as I said before, this is what happens when you rely too much on percentages. In these 5 bullet points, we have 3 of them being on percentages, and of the 3, right, only one of them makes use of the percentage properly, right? And I just want to emphasize the difference between this bullet point, which I love, that ended on a percentage, versus the other two. Spearheaded e-commerce operations with 110 team members and 6 direct reports while driving a 98% order fulfillment rate, right? Could they have added how many orders that they got? Yes, but I can already make the assumption that this is a large scale operation because you have 117 people including yourself. Sorry. um yeah, either I read it as 117 people including yourself, or 110 people and 6 of them are your direct reports, but either way, that is a large scale operation. You know what I'm saying? That's a small school in some villages. um this And then if you go to the other one, right, this is just very vague in comparison. You know what I'm saying? Like, again, I also think order fulfillment rate is a better is pairs with a percentage better than productivity, because order fulfillment rate, I know what, like, again, I know what an order fulfillment rate is. This one requires a bit more, and the same with this one. So disappointed in this experience here. Um, love this first bullet point. Love this second bullet point. Not Don't like this bullet point. Love this bullet point. Again, context here is that um things like compliance and order fulfillment, right? add good enough context. Like we know what compliance is, we know what order fulfillment is, right? It's easier for us to quantify it. If you don't comply, you're going to be in trouble, right? If you don't fulfill the order, you're gonna if you have anything that's less than a certain percentage, like if you say 60% order fulfillment, you're bad at your job. Your team sucks, right? Um, those have a lot more context and givers and identifiers than like the other two, which is why which is why I'm so adamant that you just be a lot more intentional if you're going to go this route. Um, Drove a 15% year over year increase in sales revenue by developing long term customer relations. So, this is a good attempt at. So, let me just see here. So, this is a good. This is a good attempt at adding the context to the percentage. I think that I think detailing the type of plans that customers got would have been a better thing, or even talking about like, what you average per customer per transaction would have been a good way to like kind of add proper context to that 15%. Um, this doesn't really say much, reads like a checklist. This one is this one's good. I think if you kind of alluded or connected it to like minimizing shrinkage, minimizing or lowering shrinkage, employee shrinkage year over year, you may sound like a op a little bit, but it makes the percentage be a bit better. Would totally kill this. This is a really good point. This is a really good point. This is a bad point, right? So overall, there is some really strong bullet points here, and I would say I am a fan of the actual. I'm a big fan actually of the template. I'm not even gonna lie here. It's easy to read. It was easy for me to get through. Right, it wasn't a pain in the ass. The summary is the only thing that I need. So, I think fixing and being more specific and intentional with some of these bullet points would improve this resume quite a bit. But to me, this is a 7.5. Decent resume. Good job. All right. Let's see. Do we have any more questions popping up? So, Taryn, I'm gonna load the last resume for tonight. So, Taryn is asking, could me skipping my start date for college be a reason why my applications are getting more hits from recruiters? No, not unless it's specifically asked for it in the application portal and you skip it. But no, that's not the reason. The reason why I said it was you have some stupid recruiters, but not all. Like some, like a very small percentage. But some recruiters get stupid with the power tripping, and they might dock you for that. Others won't care. A lot of them won't care. But I think the reason why I said the months is because filling up that shit with Workday is like a pain in the ass. It's a gigantic pain in the ass. And you increase your chances of having to implement or put all that stuff back in when you miss the months, because that's just how Workday's temperamental ass wants to act. If you couldn't tell, I don't like Workday. I'm sure Workday has some great people working there, but oh my God, like I hope I speak for job seekers when I say that, like, Workday is ass, man. Like if Workday has 100 haters in the world, I am among them. If Workday has 10 haters, I am among them. If Workday has one hater in the world, that would be me. And if Workday has 0 haters, I'm dead. Because I hate Workday so much. I hate it so much. It's almost insulting sometimes. Like it really irritates me. Okay, so let's I'm spazzing on over Workday. Let us go to the next resume. Jacqueline. Okay, so right off the bat, Jacqueline, outside of the professional summary, which has some really cool points, which I think would have been better served as like career highlights. Um, I think that your technical skills are good. There's a nice readability. Ah, I see. You're a student, I guess. No, you're not. So, I don't think the projects are a good thing to have here. I think that you're better off putting that in a portfolio, so to speak, right? But the project's taking up this real estate. I don't like it all. I also don't like that your projects have a lot more detail than your actual job, right? So I would love again company either have a company overview or a role overview, preferably both, to explain the context of like what you're responsible for, in addition to like where you're working and like how big the employer is or like what it is that they do in terms of industry. Um, I think I think your points here are very, very generic and very, very like superficial. They don't talk about any impact whatsoever. Some of them, you talk about like you do have some keywords here and whatnot, but not being specific with the actual like ERPs themselves, for example, takes away from that. Um, Going into this next one, I do appreciate, and I do like that bullet point right there. Um, Everything else, like I said, is very generic. It reads like a checklist, so there isn't enough there for me to be happy with. Um, Kind of the same throughout the whole entire resume, to be honest. Um, so I do think that there's a huge area of opportunity for you to be a lot more specific when it comes to the kind of quantifiers you put on your resume and having like an actual portfolio for this kind of stuff to be in. And if you are doing like any coding projects, because I like again as a PM, it does help. I would not only have like a portfolio where people could view them, I would also upload them to GitHub as well. I think you can do that. I don't know if you can do that with Tableau and Shopify. I know you can do it with SQL and HTML, but nonetheless, I would have a portfolio, and a GitHub if GitHub wasn't an option for this. In my portfolio, I would have a blog detailing like the steps and technologies I specifically use to get this up and loaded. But I'm gonna have to give this resume a 5. The only thing I really like about it is just how clean the template is. But like again, stuff like the projects, the professional summary, the lack of overall experience, not detailing your role overview or having a company overview. So I kind of have to guess like I know project manager, yeah, it's pretty straightforward, but even then, I don't know what kind of industry or projects that you're actually working in, until I kind of get down here and I can kind of guess it from like the pharmacy bit. But it does leave quite a bit to for desired. So I do thank you, Jacqueline, for submitting that. Um, Apologies, I didn't mean to be mean, but just trying to be real. Okay, so I'm gonna go through about 2, 3 more resumes. I'm gonna say this again, folks. If you have any career questions, please feel free to ask. You know, don't bite. I don't bite. Um, yes, don't be shy. Let me know. Let me know if you have any questions, and we'll deal with them accordingly. Okay, so call center manager. You guys already know what I'm going to say about the professional summary. I think that if you're going to do this, they should all align well. So really, either this person has to just say the Microsoft suite, or Microsoft 365 and take out the rest, or just eliminate the bottom 3 from here so everything's just properly aligned. Um, when it comes to the actual experience in itself, like I said in the previous ones, this is very, very generic and very vague. Like, I think this is a decent point, right? But like all this stuff here, very vague. Um, you should highlight what kind of vendors we're talking about, and you should highlight, how many customers for a quantifier here. Um, I think that's just this can get killed. I think all this can be gone. You need to be a bit more specific on the IT support, big area of opportunity to expand on it. Just listing out the experience like this isn't good. I need to know what it is that you're actually doing. And like I said, sometimes it's not really good when you have like everything kind of broken up, right? Um, so based on what I'm seeing here, like kind of like the same thing. Like I do like the inventory systems, but there's no quantifiers here. You got quantifiers here actually. So if you can write the rest of the resume like this, that'd be great. I also wouldn't put selected contributions. I would put major accomplishments because that's what they are. Um, but yeah, you need to. So this second half is much better when it comes to like the percentages and just fleshing things out. If you could write the rest of the resume, the first half of the resume, like the rest, I think you'd be golden in a much better place. But like writing it like this isn't doing you any favors, and isn't speaking as highly to your stuff as like the stuff down here. So I'd give this resume like a 5.5. Okay. Let's do one more. All right. Nisi. Like the hyperlink to the website, like the hyperlink to the LinkedIn, like how you redacted this. Um, oops. Click the email. Y'all know how I feel about the professional summary. This is a really good so outside of the way that strategic planning kind of came up, I would just eliminate the management bit. Kind of threw everything off course, but I would just get this a bit more lined up. But this is like very vague, very good, very good, okay, okay, very good, meh, okay, meh, okay, good, 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 vague, vague. So you can kind of probably do a little bit of like readjusting to make everything the same and line up. Project highlights, Catch the Ghost, various odd Apple Store. So I would say I'm not a big fan of this because just the way that it is highlighted, I don't know which specific company or project this is going towards. It'd be great if you hyperlinked it to your through your portfolio. For the Catch the Ghost project. So you should be specific at what company this project is originated from. If it's like in collaboration with Warner Brothers, for example, you'd want to put that. Too vague. Too vague. Product manager, like this quite a bit. And it was with and it was with that organization. So like again, that should have been here, but which company it was with, like the use of hyperlinks. This is a bit vague. This is a really good use of percentages, right? User retention, subscriber growth, love it. Love the optimizing class cloud infrastructure. Love that it goes straight to the app. Again, this is okay with the client rate satisfaction. I think this one's okay as well. I think spacing things out a little bit more would do wonders for this resume. And having a bit of a role overview as well. would do really good. But this is why, like, if you're gonna use project highlights, they got to be specific and they got to be strong, which is kind of what's missing from here. So I'd eliminate the project highlights, I'd eliminate the professional summary, and space this out, and suddenly it's a lot easier to read, right? Um, Oversaw 3 projects, 300 personnel. This is also a decent one. Um, love that, again, we have the hyperlinks to the actual websites themselves, especially if especially if you are um like from the continent or from a country or from like an organization or employer that's not well known. um Hyperlinking to the website is really good. Only do that though if the website looks proper and is like won't actually like embarrass you. We'll just take like a quick glance, and like easily this is a very very responsive website. So good first impression there, right? um like the bullet points here, finally we got something that's not a percentage. I like the time-based one. um like the operational, like the see, this is good. Investment processing is good. I thought it said operational for a second. I was about to lose my head. Drop off rates by 40%. So this person does a really good job of using percentages, right? Um, Again, I think you can move this up. Technical proficiencies, in my opinion, should be at the top of the resume. And I think like you can easily get this into 2 pages. So this is a 7.5 for me. uh Mostly because of the wasteful space, but the actual like resume in itself was actually really good and really strong. And I enjoyed this quite a bit. Okay, so we are we are at the 96-minute mark. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and we have a couple of questions in the chat. Um, we're going to be wrapping up soon, so please feel free to ask your questions. Be more than happy to answer them and expand. Santa, thank you again for coming through. I appreciate you. So she asked, most of my work experiences have been in the hospitality industry. I have a post grad in project management. How do I transfer those skills into roles like administrative assistant and logistics? So when it comes to logistics and the hospitality industry, what you want to talk about could be everything from assisting or helping the restaurant order from suppliers, or arranging special deliveries. That would kind of help highlight the logistics aspect of it. I think the administrative assistance part of it, or the administrative part, you can just easily highlight stuff that you were doing in terms of like taking orders if you were a waitress, for example. But when it comes to hospitality and logistics, just look for like arranging deliveries is always a really good point to kind of point out. That's logistics in itself. Especially if you're going to like on-site events, like maybe someone's doing like a catering, for example, and you're going on-site, and like if you have specific ingredients that will spoil if they don't get to that engagement on time, that's stuff that you'd want to highlight as well. And Ramel asks, can you share the best free ATS scanners? What are your thoughts on using free scanners? Chat GPT and Claude, maybe Perplexity. I say that because I'm going to be doing a video on it a little bit later, but excuse me, a little later, but like a lot of these resume scanners, um, a lot of them are trying to emotionally manipulate you into purchasing other resume services. And I have the same beef with it as I do with people, especially resume writers, who talk about, oh, the AI is rejecting your application. That shit always annoys me because it's not true. And like the person's either trying to spread ignorance or they're trying to like sell you something. So a lot of these ATS places, for example, I have a beef with them. One, because they're always trying to upsell you on something, right? So like it'll be like, hey, it's free, but then like after like 3 suggestions, it's behind a paywall for any more. which means that you're incentivized to pay. They'll tell you something really bad about your resume, and then you can only know how to properly fix it if you pay. So, like right there, to me, that's predatory. Um, the second thing I will say is that I get annoyed that they never seem to tell you specifically what ATS this job description is coming from or what ATS it's optimized for. You know what I'm saying? They just say it just gives you a general, oh yeah, you this is your ATS score, and like LinkedIn, or I should say Lever, Jazz HR, Greenhouse, Workday, Taleo, Ashby, you know what I'm saying? Oyster, like all these ATSs may do the same thing, but they run very differently from each other. Bullhorn, man, hate you, Bullhorn. You're garbage. Um, sorry, I had a little moment there. I don't like Bullhorn at all. But like that's my thought process on them. So you got to be very careful. Um, I like if you're looking for a resume scanner or an ATS scanner, Chat GPT. You plug in the resume, plug in the cover, the job description, and ask it for a match score percentage, right? And ask it to highlight what is missing from your resume to be 100% fit, right? And kind of build it from there. But like these other ones, they're trying to sell you something or they're trying to take advantage of your fear. And that's why I don't rock with them a lot. But anyway, folks, I appreciate you for coming on to this and listening to me do a little bit of rant and some resume reviews. So my next stream is also going to be tomorrow. Yes, tomorrow. And that stream is going to be on tech jobs that you're good for. If you want to try to see if you want to submit your resume for I cannot put if you want to submit your resume just in the subject line put tech job, tell me my tech job, right? And send it to that email, support@jupiterhr.ca. Tomorrow at 6 p.m., I'll be doing another stream and I'll be telling people what tech jobs that they're good for, why, and also how they can do it. Mostly highlighting like different projects that they want to get involved with and kind of brainstorming with them on there. So if you are interested in seeing on whether or not like what tech jobs are good for you based on your homie's opinion, please come through. But if you rock with me for the end of the stream, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. I hope you have a blessed and a highly favored week, and may God protect all your loved ones. Until next time. Oh my God, this fucking button.